I'm here with Mark Sisson, the founder of Primal Blueprint, Primal Kitchen. Mark, you've changed your mind on a lot of things over the years. And as someone that was really kind of the pinnacle of so many things, nutrition related, health related, people listen and talk about things you've changed your perspective on. So, I mean, jumping right in, what's the first thing you've changed your mind on in the last few years? After today's video, I popped a link down below for LMNT, Element Electrolytes. Whether you are someone that is fasting, doing low carb, whether you're vegan, whether you're just trying to control your blood sugar, electrolytes are important. And the thing that I like about Element is they taste unbelievable, but we're talking about something that doesn't have any sugar in it. So we're talking sodium, potassium, magnesium. Amazing flavors. I like the citrus salt flavor, I like the mango chili, and when I want something different, I like their chocolate salt that I can actually put in warm water and drink like a hot chocolate. So the link down below gets you a free variety pack. So you get a free sample pack of all the different flavors with any purchase. So that link down below is drinklmnt.com/Thomas. It's directly below this video in the top line of the description. Check them out.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, I'm on the one hand, I do a lot of research and I'm willing to change my mind based on the research I read. And I do a lot of experiential stuff. And so some of the things I've changed my mind on have had more to do with just the experience over time of things like that. And it's across the board. So it's not just in terms of nutrition, it's in terms of other lifestyle things as well. For example, I would say I've changed my mind on supplementation in the last 5 or 7 years. I've gradually reduced, in particular, the amount of vitamins and minerals that I take to basically zero. So I used to make the world's highest potency, full spectrum, multivitamin, multimineral, antioxidant super formula. And I took it, and it was the basis of my first company, and a lot of people believed in it. I believed in it. But over the years, I've kind of adopted this sort of what's the minimum effective dose of vitamins and minerals that I can get away with. And in reviewing the research, it turns out that all the RDAs were established in the 40s when we had a wickedly high grain-based diet. And I think the grain was causing the body to require a lot more input on the vitamin and mineral side. So now that I'm primarily carnivore, and I do eat vegetables a little bit, and I do eat berries and kind of a typical Saladino type carnivore diet, I've titered my vitamin intake down to basically zero. So the only 2 supplements I take are collagen, and I think you and I have had this discussion before. I think collagen should be its own macronutrient. It should be the 4th nutrient behind fat, protein, and carbohydrate. Because I think the matrix of collagen peptides is such that you can't get it in meat, you can't get it in vegetables, you can only get it in collagenous parts of animals, skin, connective tissue, broth, stock, boiling stock, and things like that, or through a collagen supplement. So I take a collagen supplement and I take vitamin D. Well, isn't vitamin D a vitamin? Well, as we've known for a long time, I think vitamin D ought to be classified as a hormone. So it's not even that I'm taking a vitamin when I'm taking vitamin D. I'm taking sort of a pre-hormone configuration, partly because I just don't convert sunlight and cholesterol into vitamin D as efficiently as I'd like to. And I like to spend a lot of time out in the sunlight. So that's I would say, in terms of on the supplement side, I've really evaluated the utility of many of the supplements that we assume we need to have because of the foods that we eat these days.
Do you think that perhaps being that your training demand isn't as intense as it once was, either that might change some of your supplementation needs? Do you think if your training was still as intense as it was 30 years ago, that you would require supplementation? Or knowing what you know now, if you trained the same way, what would your supplementation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I had not examined that part of it because I was training 35 hours a week back in the day. Yeah. But I was also playing around with vitamin and mineral and nutrient combinations that we didn't know a lot about at the time. I remember in 1978, I was taking 25 grams of vitamin C a day because it was felt that was the sort of the master recovery nutrient. And they would say to take it to bowel tolerance, right? So, so you took as much vitamin C carbonate in the day as you could until you got the so like okay, that's my but then what about all the other interactive vitamins and minerals that come along with that? So I had experimented with high potency supplementation in those days. I would probably still supplement, but more with mineral combinations, right? More the electrolyte thing. I still to this day I do supplement with LMNT or the element because I feel like that, first of all, I think it tastes great with cold sparkling water, and I do feel the need for electrolytes after finishing, a hot bike ride in the Miami sun. But beyond that, I'm not really taking any supplements, and I think I probably would not supplement nearly as much if I were to somehow magically acquire those training hours again. I just feel like I want to see what the least amount of those vitamins and minerals I can get away with or get from my diet and not have to add supplementally.
It was interesting when I had Paul Saladino in here a few weeks ago. We were talking a little bit about taurine, and taurine being tremendous as a potent antioxidant. Like when you look, muscle biopsies after intense training bouts, you take actual muscle biopsy, you see there's elevated levels of taurine, and it's acting as an antioxidant. And taurine, just the literature is very fascinating. He was saying taurine is one of the, you get out of red meat, and it's one of the few things that's very much so denatured when you cook red meat, so the rarer the meat, the better. And it was kind of interesting, because even something like taurine, like we're seeing pop up in all kinds of different supplements, still also available in meat, right? It's
well, that's the thing. I mean, this whole thing about my not taking supplements is predicated on my eating well, on my eating a nutrient-dense, nutrient-rich diet, which is largely animal-based. And whatever plant material I'm getting, whether it's in the form of a salad once in a while or steamed vegetables or a bowl of fruit, there are enough of the other vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients that cover all my bases now.
Quite a divergence from your big-ass salad.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right, so that's supplementation. What's another thing that you've changed your mind on?
So grass-fed beef. It's an interesting discussion about, because for the look, when we talk about ways of eating and we talk about incorporating natural food into our diet, the discussion always sort of centers around pasture-raised, regeneratively raised, grass-fed beef, for instance. And I'm all about raising beef on their native environment, which is grass. But when we get to the end of that life cycle and we find that there's some beef that has been grain finished, but grain finished without antibiotics, without hormones, added hormones, just grain finished for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, I have no problem with that. So I was early on, I was in that only grass-fed camp. But if you do the math and if you start to understand what's going on with beef protein, for instance, a grass-fed, grass-finished animal has the same amino acid profile as a grain-fed, grain-finished animal. So the protein complement is the same. And really the only difference is the fatty acid profile. It's a lot of saturated fat in both cases, but in the grass-fed case, probably a little bit more omega-3, higher omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. And that was sort of the thing that everybody was all concerned about for a decade, like the highly inflammatory omega-6 oils, right? And how you offset that by taking in more omega-3 oils from fish oil or from salmon. Well, when you look at beef, you don't eat beef for its omega-3 content. So if you're saying, okay, I want to buy a great tasting cut of meat, or I'm going to a restaurant and you ask, do you have grass-fed beef? And they say, sorry, we don't. It's too expensive and it's too difficult to maintain. We would say, I would say in the old days, well, I guess I'll have the fish or something else. But now I don't care that much about it. I'm not that concerned that my beef was not grass finished. Again, I am all about regenerative. I'm all about sustainable. I'm all about hormone and antibiotic free. But it doesn't mean that an animal has to be completely grass fed. And if it was grain finished in any way, it doesn't count as a legitimate source of protein for me.
Yeah, I think they used to say, you are what you ate, and I don't think that that's entirely a fair statement to make, because when you're getting down to a protein profile, it's not altering that.
Right.
And like you said, you're not eating a steak for the omega-3 profile. If people knew how much, ALA is actually in a steak,
Right.
they would laugh anyway.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it's not even the eicosapentaenoic or docosahexaenoic acid that you want to begin with.
Yeah.
So you have a small amount of omega-3 that's in ALA form, and then I might be mistaken, but I want to say it's like 1 to 3% conversion into EPA DHA.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're looking at single-digit milligrams practically.
Right. And that's the major difference between the two, between a grass-fed,
Between a $12
grain-finished
steak and a $9 steak.
or a $40 steak and a $9 steak. Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. And I think, so in our community, a lot of people have moved away from steak because of this assumption that if it's not grass-fed, then Mark and Tom must not approve of it, right? And I'm like, no, it's certainly better than that bowl of oatmeal or that bowl of pasta that you're about to consume.
Yeah, and it's doubling up the two things that you said about collagen as well. I mean, I'm a tremendous fan of ground beef for that reason. I feel like ground beef, I'm getting a decent fatty acid profile, I'm getting the protein, but I'm also getting the collagen.
Absolutely.
And like people want to throw that ground beef away because they think it's this is the cheap. No, I'm getting all the connective tissue. I'm getting everything I want.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm not going to just chow on a tendon. So if you give me the gristle, that's what I want.
No, and you can do a lot with ground beef too.
Yeah,
you can
versatile.
dress it up and sauce it up and everything. So
Absolutely,
yeah,
man.
Sure.
All right, so we've got grass-fed beef. We've got our supplements. What's next?
So I would say the next thing that I've shifted over the years is cold plunging. I was an early adopter. I started cold plunging in my pool in my backyard in Malibu about 15 years ago. And so my nightly ritual was to go in, walk in 48 to 51 degree water in the wintertime anyway, because we kept it unheated, and hang out as long as I could, and then finish up with a little bit of a jacuzzi and then go to bed. And that was kind of my start in the cold plunging arena. And then as I got more into the science of it and I started to look into research on brown fat activation, on anti-inflammatory benefits, on other sort of aspects of plunging, I got into it and I started doing it too much. Yeah. And I think that is what I'm seeing a lot in all of these areas, but particularly in the biohacking community. This idea that a hormetic experience is good for the body, and a brief hormetic exposure. And then the assumption would be, well, if a brief one is good, then a slightly longer one must be better, and a really long one must be awesome. But we forget that the hormetic experience, the hormetic exposure, is only intended to cause a brief disruption in hormones and in homeostasis and all the other normal processes going on in the body. So you can take this wonderful short hormetic exposure and turn it into a stressful adventure that causes you to set yourself back. And where it became apparent to me was I started cold plunging in a spa that I frequent, and guys would come in from the sauna and they would jump in and they'd jump out and they'd towel themselves off after just a quick dunk and then getting out. And they'd see me walk in, calm, zero affect, walk down the stairs, plunge, hang out with my hands underwater for 4.5 minutes, right? And they're like, oh my God, like that's amazing. Well, I'd explain what I'm doing, and then the response would be, I'd say, I'll coach you through this. Let's just start with 30 seconds. 2 weeks later, these guys would come up and go, dude, I did 5.5 minutes the other day. What can you do? I'm like, this is not a dick measuring contest.
Yeah.
I could do it, but the last time I tried to go for a Wim Hof type, length of exposure, I got sick. I took myself over the edge. So do I not do it? No, I do it once in a while, but I don't go for those long exposures. I do it once in a while, not daily, and I do it with the intention of getting just enough of that hormetic exposure. I don't need to feel the brown fat activating. I just want to feel good when I get out of the water and go about my day. So I've really kind of backtracked from that quite a bit.
Yeah, well, especially when people don't factor in their training demand, they don't factor in arguments with their spouses or their loved ones as stressors, and they don't
running a business,
like traffic, whatever.
Yeah.
Like all these things are stressors in their own right that have different applications and different, mediums, but they all kind of overlap at least in the same adrenaline, noradrenaline level.
Exactly, at that biochemical level, the body doesn't know whether the stress came from traffic, an argument, an overdue bill, or cold exposure.
Yeah. So it could be the same as, you had a terrible bout of traffic coming home from work.
Yeah.
You also got a pink slip, you got fired. And as far as your body's concerned, when you jump in that cold plunge, because you're like, well, I got to do something hard today.
Yeah.
Your body thinks maybe your wife just divorced you.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like everything is, up in the air. And I'm in the exact same boat as you. My cold plunge routine, people ask me all the time. It has no rhyme or reason. I don't have a pattern to it. I don't do it a specific X number of days per week. I do it when I feel like it. And I go for 1 minute.
Yeah.
And can I go longer? Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Just because I can doesn't mean I should, right?
Yeah.
And that seems to be and usually on a low training volume day.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got the cold exposure, we've got the meat, we've got the supplements. Number 4, what do we have?
Stretching. So I used to not be a stretcher, and then I got older. I got much older, and so now I'm starting to appreciate the value of some amount of stretching. Now, what I've done is I've cut back on my intense weightlifting with full range of motion. So I'm not doing full squats. I'm not doing full deadlifts. I'm not doing full push-ups. Not even I'll lean against a post or something like that. So I've cut back on the full range of motion to get the maximum amount of sort of load at the focal point of the muscle that I'm trying to either increase mass or strength. And then I'm following that up with an active stretching protocol at least 3 times a week now. So whereas before I'm like stretching, I'll just warm up. I'll just warm into the routine, and I'll stretch a little bit, but not with any sort of intention behind it. And now I'm stretching more intentionally. Now, do I do yoga? No, can't hang with the yoga class, but I have my own sort of set of stretches that I do that, which include you can't do a dead hang in a yoga class, but it's a great stretch, right? So I do. I'm recognizing that I get out of bed with less stiffness and soreness and general malaise and pain and a lack of range of motion I get if I've done the stretching the day before.
Yeah, I've actually noticed the same thing with myself too, and sometimes you can get inside your own head because there's so many opponents of stretching out there.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I'm not doing it to increase my stamina in the gym. I'm not doing it to immediately say, hey, I'm going to warm up and stretch before I squat.
Right.
I do it because I feel better when I do. And I think that's kind of the big point here is like maybe there's not, and I also think it has a lot to do with the joint capsules too. I think like as you get older, like maybe it's less about stretching the muscle and it's more about like a dead hang. There's undeniable research suggesting that a dead hang is tremendous for a number of different things, ranging from shoulder range of motion to spinal decompression.
Yes.
It's a stretch, but you're getting all these benefits. Maybe it's not measurable at the musculoskeletal level, but it's measurable at maybe a more orthopedic level of the joints, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so with that, what do we have next?
And I think number 5, I've always been a proponent of walking for everybody, but not for me. I was a runner for a long time. I was a career runner, and then even after I stopped competing at a high level, I did triathlons for a while, and then I stayed active as a runner. I haven't run much in the last 15 years. I sprint, and now I walk. And so I've really shifted my point of view on walking to the point that I think I'll be writing my next book on walking. I think it's the single best activity that a human being can do. And if you think about all of the sort of the counter arguments, like, well, if you can run, why wouldn't you run? Because it's, you're burning more calories, you're moving faster. Well, running is fine, and I ran for a long time, and I probably still would if I could. But walking is so much more of a human experience. We literally were born to walk, and I just came back from 3 months on the road where I didn't have access to a gym every day, and I didn't have my fat bike, which I would normally ride a couple times a week on the beach. Didn't have access to a paddle that much, but I walked between 10 and 12 miles a day, every day. And it was incredible how my fitness level was maintained. Yeah, I went to the gym and I lifted and I did some of the other ancillary stuff to stay fit and to stay up at whatever level I want to stay at. But the walking was sort of the centerpiece to all of that. So I'm really refocusing on the walking part of my own fitness regimen. You know, when you think about it, this is sort of a little challenge I would have. People who defend running, and again, if you want to run, I'm not going to stop you. The problem with running is most people do it wrong. Most people run on a heel toe. You know, if you walk heel toe. You land on the heel, you push off on the big toe, you land on the heel. That's a normal human gait. But a normal human running stride is to land on the midfoot or the forefoot, not to land on the heel. If you were barefoot running across, a concrete floor, you would never land on your heel. You'd pound your joints out of existence within a few strides. So if you were to run barefoot on, say, a concrete surface, you'd automatically adjust your footfall to reduce the amount of G-forces as much as you could. And so walking allows you to perform that natural human gait, but you say, well, but I want to run. Well, and it's much more efficient. Well, how much more efficient is it? If you tell me you can walk, like I'm going to ask you, how fast can you walk? If we're going to walk for an hour, how many miles an hour can you walk?
My top speed, or do I average?
No, your average good speed.
I'm 3 to 4.
3 to 4. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say it's 4. That's 15-minute miles. Can you run twice as fast as that for an hour? Can you run 7:30s for an hour?
I can, but I'm also a runner, so.
most people can't. And I would also say that your top speed is really 12 miles an hour walking, and could you run 6 miles an hour? So point is, most people can't run even twice as fast as they walk. So why not walk? Why not do this completely biomechanically correct activity that prevents injury rather than encouraging injury? Yeah. Like if you get injured running, how do you rehab? You walk. So walking should be I think the focal point of everyone, no matter where you are in this world, should be the focal part of your movement experience. Not to burn calories. Look, when we do low level aerobic activity, we shouldn't even track the calories. This is about moving. This is about walking, especially on different angles and different tilts and different planes and different topographies. So I've really shifted my attitude from running is the cat's ass, it's the key, it's the big deal, to no, walking is really where it's at.
It's funny because when you look at, like, if I've done a couple trail ultras, and like you get, especially on these steep inclines, it's like you're just slogging, right? And then you realize, wow, if I break into a walk, I'm actually moving faster.
That happened. I was one of the better runners in the country, and I was in a 15K off-road race at Berkeley Hills in the 70s. And I remember almost crying because I was running so slow, trying to keep my running pace, and then I just started walking, and I was walking faster than I was running.
Comes a little bit of a mental sickness where you're just like, I have to be running.
Yeah, and if you talk to ultra runners, a lot of them, will do just that. They'll hike fast on the uphills, and then they'll jog the downhills, for instance.
Yeah, it's a much more efficient strategy.
Right.
Okay, so just to recap here, we had the supplement piece, which is huge. Okay, so you're keeping electrolytes in, you're keeping collagen in. That's
vitamin D.
And vitamin D. Yep. That's really about it. Okay, so no more quibbling over, grass-fed, grass-finished. Right. Save yourself a couple bucks. Go for the grain-finished if it's available, whatever. Right. Okay, as long as it's hormone, antibiotic-free. Right. Okay, and then number 3 we had. Well, number 4 was stretching. Number 3 was
cold plunge.
Yeah. Number 3 was cold plunging, which is something that I echo the sentiments on tremendously.
Yeah.
Number 4 we had stretching, and lastly number 5, walking being the king.
Right. And now here's the thing. I reserve my right to change my mind on any of those. You know what I mean? Because this is what I've done my whole career. Is I look at the research, I look at the data, I look at my experiences, and I'm like, okay, like how valuable or not is this? How important or not is this? And I adjust my own behavior based on that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that when people consume content sometimes, or when you're coaching people, they want to take one thing and they like, I got it. Okay, cool, we've got the answer. Yeah. And I know anyone that's in our space, catches flack for changing our minds sometimes, but that's just because sometimes it comes at a little bit of an inconvenience cost for the person that's on the receiving end of content, because you mean like, oh, but you told me 5 years ago doesn't apply. But this isn't, it's like maintenance on your car. You can't just, oh, I got the best synthetic oil, put it in my car, I'm never gonna have to change the oil again.
Right.
Like, new and improved things happen, and if you want to be on top, you gotta keep it going.
No, but that's a good example. Is it for the longest time, you had to change your oil every 3,000 or 4,000 miles or 6,000 miles, depending on. And now synthetic oils come along, and you don't have to do that anymore. Yep. So anybody who kept changing their oil and not adapting to the new technology, or at least the new, best use case, was sort of left out in the weeds.
It was like my old 67 Mustang when I was in high school. It was like, my dad would say, don't change the oil on that thing, because the oil is what's kind of holding those O-rings together, keeping everything together. Don't drain the oil.
It's a hell of a car too.
So, well, man, where can everyone find you? And a quick plug for Palooza as well.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find that?
Yep. So I'm on Mark's Daily Apple is the blog. Been around for 17 years now, almost to the day. Wear Palooza, WearPeluva. Wear Palooza is the shoe site on Instagram, or palooza.com to go check out what we have. And my plug about walking is I walk only in Palouvas because they make me feel like I want to walk, not like I have to walk. So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So what else? And then I'm Mark Sisson Primal on Instagram if you want to see some shirtless shots of you and me on a fat bike.
Those were good times, man. Well, cool. Well, as always, keep it locked in here on the channel. And Mark, my man, thank you.
All right, you bet.